Here's what I'm going to say about Anthony Edwards. Stop talking and just play. Because every time you speak, it makes me want to hurl. Everything that you say, everything that you do as a leader of this team shows your non-leadership skills after the game. You don't want to take responsibility. You want to blame everybody else, and you want to say that you only had 13 shots. How about this? You want more than 13 shots? Get in position so you can get a shot. Stop trying to dunk the ball. Stop dancing and prancing around the referees when you get fouled and crying the river like Karl Anthony Towns. That's why you guys were buddies. That's why I call you the Timber Bullies. That's what you are. You're a bully. That's what you are, Anthony. You don't want to take responsibility when you want to be you don't want to be the face of the United States basketball, but you want to take responsibility when you're not getting the ball, and you want to say that you're not getting a ball and that's why your team didn't win. You didn't win because you're not a team player. If you actually step back and realize what team means, it doesn't mean Anthony Edwards. The Timberwolves as a team does not mean Anthony Edwards. And by the way, Alex Rodriguez, where the hell are you when you have a player with this kind of confidence? We all know, Alex, you were a great player. You're one of the greatest of your era. And you know you got to step back as a leader and an owner of a team after that game, when watching that debacle of a game, and pull Anthony Edwards to the side and say, listen, you haven't won nothing, buddy. I was the best player in the league for over 12 years, and I didn't win a championship until I went to the Yankees. And it took me 5 years to do that with guys like Joba Chamberlain and Derek Jeter and all those bullies over there in New York.
Joba had to save the bullpen.
I'm just saying it. You got to be a champion. And if you want to be a champion, and you got to be a champion, you got to find a way to be a leader. And you going up there and cursing and prancing when all these kids are buying your jersey and buying your sneakers and doing that in front of the press shows you're not mature enough to be here in the NBA and making millions and millions of dollars. I love the fact that he's come out and said that he doesn't go out there and spend his money on nice jewelry and buy, these crazy cars, that he's saving his money because he doesn't want to go broke. I love his whole demeanor when it comes to saving money and trying to be a professional. What I don't like about Anthony Edwards is I don't like his bragging. I don't like him coming out and talking about how much money he's making through endorsements and how much him as a player, and as he moves forward as a player, he can make and become a billionaire before the age of 30. I don't want to know about that. All I want to know is, when are you going to win a championship? When are you going to lead your team to a finals and actually have a chance to win a championship? Because we've seen it back-to-back years, and we might see it back-to-back years where you're going to lose. And I'm going to say this. I got to give a shout-out to Julius Randle. I got to give a shout-out to this guy. Because as a New York Knick, this guy.
Hold on. You're calling him by his name and not the bricklayer?
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it when I watch it. I'm an honest guy, and I watch the game. He is, as a Knick fan has always called him, and I'm one of them, called him the bricklayer. I got to give him credit. When this guy has been a laughingstock here in New York because he doesn't show up to playoff games and in the big games, and he loved to throw Jalen Brunson under the bus and say that he was the better player on the team. He's gone out there. He's been a team leader over there with the Timberwolves, and he's played well. And I think he's really transitioned into a team leader over there with the Timberwolves. You would expect that Anthony Edwards is the leading voice of that locker room. It's not. It's Julius Randle. And it's crazy because after the game, when they're interviewing Julius Randle says, we got to play better, especially me. I got to play better. I got to get these guys to play better. If I play at the top of my game and they're playing at the top of their game, there should be no reason why we shouldn't win. And by the way, Julius Randle is a comedian. He likes to make jokes, and you can see him and Anthony Edwards at the press conference. But Julius Randle is not going to go out there and curse, use the F-bomb, and things like that. That shows the maturity of Julius Randle. It shows the non-maturity of a guy like Anthony Edwards. And it just bothers me because I don't know if the Timberwolves will ever get over the hump with this guy as their leader.
Isn't there like a crazy ceiling and a crazy floor for him?
100%
in his career,
which in most cases, I defended him a lot of the time, but I can't hear.
So I'm glad everyone's coming around to the dark side, which was my opinion on Anthony Edwards for a while now, because I just worry about his lack of maturity, and he's now in the league 5 years.
Ram jam.
There's there's a guy that played in the league 6 years and was like really great, young guy who was going to take over back in the day, Errol, when I was in high school, so in the early 2000s, and he fell off a cliff because if you don't mature in time, your athleticism doesn't stay as you get older. You lose some of it. So if you don't start playing the game in a way where the ball gets back to you enough that you take enough shots, and you run sets well, so you get the ball at the end of them. Let's face it, that's on you. If you start with the ball and you don't end up with it, what are you talking about? Like, you're the one starting the play. You've initiated offense. What are we even talking about with that? So my guy that I'm worried about as the floor, what if he's Stevie Franchise? Stevie Franchise was a super dunker, was an all-star every year, and then the athleticism went a little bit, lost the shot a little bit, and he was basically an afterthought. Ended up on the Knicks as an afterthought, of course, on those horrible Knicks teams, and was out of the league in less than 10 years. That is the floor for him, because he has the athleticism. Will his maturity catch up in time? And then, obviously, Stevie Franchise suffered a bad knee. We're not saying anything like that's going to happen. But that's the worst case scenario, right? Someone who's already rising to that level.
Don't worry,
Brandon Roy was a great player for 5 years.
First of all, Anthony Edwards is a much better player than Stevie Franchise.
Sure.
Much better player. I mean, you're talking about a top 3 player right now in the NBA. You can argue he's just as good as Jokic. He's just as good as Shai Alexander. He is that good. I don't know why anybody doesn't think that he is. The problem with him is he thinks he's the best that ever was. He compares himself, and I know he doesn't want to say it, but he compares himself to Michael Jordan. He's not Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan did nothing but win. What has this guy won? He's won nothing. He had Karl Anthony Towns. He has had a good roster really since he was drafted. Has he ever gotten over the hump? By the way, he used to have Jimmy Buckets on his team. It was Jimmy Buckets, Karl Anthony Towns, and him. And they still couldn't win with Tom Thibodeau, by the way, who's the defensive guru. So I don't want to hear it anymore. As far as I'm concerned, Anthony Edwards, go out there and play the game. Show everybody that you should be considered the best player in the league. And until you do that, you're never going to be. And by the way, Kevin Durant, that was his god. That was his favorite player growing up. Ask Kevin Durant how long it took him to win a championship. It took him from going from one team to another. Does Anthony Edwards have to do that to win a championship? And I'm not taking shots at Kevin Durant. He was the best player on that Golden State Warrior team. But he had to jump from one team to another and not be the leader of the team to go with Steph Curry and be the other guy, even though he was the best player. Does Anthony Edwards have to do that in the future to win a championship? To me, that doesn't make you the best. That makes you really a top 5 player at best. And that's where he's looked at by a lot of players in the league. He's not a top 3 player because he's come out and said that he doesn't want to be the face of the NBA. He doesn't want to be the face of Team USA basketball. He just wants to play basketball and play his video games. Take your video games and shove it up your ass, bro. Take it and shove it up your ass. That to me, video games is not going to tell me what type of player you are and what the type of player you're going to be in the future. What it does tell me is that you don't care about the game as much as you should, because you should be like Kobe Bryant at 5 o'clock in the morning going to the gyms and shooting up those threes and those free throws and trying to make yourself better in the gym than going out there and playing video games till 4 o'clock in the morning after you're playing an NBA playoff game.